Okay, in this video tutorial, this is going to be an introduction to the node view. So if you're new to using the node view in Harmony, this hopefully will be a great video to kind of get you up and running with it. I have a project. Oops. Remember, so 1 to zoom out, 2 to zoom in, spacebar to pan around. And I have 2 drawing layers that I created right here. So I just went to plus and then created a drawing layer, and I drew a smiley face on the line art on this layer. So let me isolate that. So on the line art layer, I drew a smiley face right there, and then on the layer underneath of it, I just squiggled a red line on the line art layer. The difference between line art and color art, we'll bring that up. That becomes important down the road for coloring and characters and all that. And so you can see, since the smiley face is on top, when I zoom in, that black line is going over top the red line. If I click and drag it and switch the order, so now the smiley face is below, that red line is now on top, right? So keep that in mind as we go over to the node view. All right, so I've got the node view in this panel right here. And what you can do is, if you don't have it, so I'll just X that out. If you don't have the node view, you can press plus in whichever one of these panels you want it to go into. So I can hold plus and go down to node view, and that'll add the node view right there. If you don't see this toolbar right here and you want it, and I usually like to have that toolbar there, you can go to Windows, Toolbars, and then go down to Node View, second to the bottom. And you see if I take it off, it'll go away. And if I click it back on, it'll come back on. So that's how you get that toolbar right there. You can also, if you don't want your node view to be in a section like this and you want it to be a free floating window, you can go to Windows and then Node View right there. So what is this thing? So this is basically a visualization of what we have in our workspace or on our canvas. And so I'm just going to drag and select these. You can see they're a little disorganized, so I can just manually kind of get these into place, right? You can also drag and select them and select all of those. And I can press one of these 3 buttons. These are kind of different ways that Harmony will visually organize the nodes for you. So I'll just click this one just to show you. And you can see it just kind of tidies them up a little bit for you there. I usually like to manually do it, but that button's there if you want it. So you can see we have our smiley face drawing right here on this, represented by this node, and then we have our red line represented by this node. And so the composite node is a way to visually group things in Harmony. And when we're creating 2D rigs in the future, we might create more than one composite node and kind of plug them in. But you can see this composite is going out to the display, and it's going out to the right, meaning if we were to export an animation, sometimes we can use that node right there. So I'm just going to expand this out to make this a little bit larger so we can see this a little bit better. And so same as this view over here, if I press 1, I zoom out, 2, I zoom in, hold spacebar to pan around. And with the composite node, so keep your eye right here. And I'm going to take the smiley face and I'm going to move it behind the red line. So I'm going to move it underneath. So I'm just going to click on the smiley face, drag it below. You see how it switched those nodes? And so if I want to make it so the smiley face is on top of the red line again, I can just click on this node and reorder it right there. And so basically the way this composite node works is whichever drawing is plugged in the furthest to the left is going to show up on top. And whichever is furthest to the right will show up on the bottom. And so that'll become really useful down the road. Continuing on working with this node view, you can take these and unplug them right here, and you see how I unplugged that red line and it disappeared. And I'll do it for the smiley face so that you can see exactly where I clicked in order to do that. So I just click on this spot right here and I click, and then I drag off, and then I'll let go, and it unplugs it, right? So now that smiley face and that red line aren't showing up anymore because they're not plugged into my composite node. So to plug it back in, I can just click on this, drag it right there. And if I want the red line to be behind, I would drag it right there. If I want it to be on top, I would drag it right there. Very easy to reorder. You can also, if you want to delete these nodes, you can also use this cutting tool. So I can click on the cutting tool and just drag right through things, and then they'll go away, right? So you can either click on this part, drag it off, or you can use this cutting tool that's right there. So continue to expand on this a little bit. So we have drawing nodes right here, but there's other kinds of nodes that you're going to want to kind of plug in and create, especially if you're rigging a character, wanting to do anything, a little bit more complicated. You can find the node library. It should be nested behind your timeline down here. And so you can kind of manually search around and find nodes, and you can click on these and drag them up and bring them into your node view. So that's one way to do it. And if you ever want to delete a node, you just click where the name is, and then you just press delete, and it'll go away. Another quicker way of doing that you'll typically see me do in future tutorials is I'll hover my cursor in this empty space right here and press return, and it gives me a search that I can do for nodes. So let's say I wanted to create a second composite node. I can just start to type in composite combine, and there we go. And so that's how you can create new nodes. Let's just say that I want to take this composite node and I want the smiley face to go into its own composite node. If I click it and drag it, you see it doesn't go right in there. But if I hold down Option on a Mac, and this might be Alt on a PC if I'm remembering correctly, I could just hold down Option and I click and drag, and then it'll snap right there. So if you ever want a node to go in between, you can do that. And if you want to not delete it, but move it off of there, you just, same thing, hold Option or Alt, and then just click and drag it off. That's how you can kind of plug nodes in to one another right there. Continuing to expand on this, we have our name of our nodes right here. If you click on this arrow, that typically, for a drawing at least, that expands it. So you can kind of get a closer look if you're not sure what a particular drawing looks like. And you can see the visual composite shows you everything that's composited in there. So that's the arrow. This yellow box is more of the properties. So if I click on this, I'll get the properties of the node in question right here. So this is your properties panel. Something else that you might run into is we have this 3-bar button at the top left. And so you can insert a composite node. So this is a third way you can insert that composite node, right? So I could search in the node library and find it down here. I can hover my cursor, press return, and find it right there. I can also click on this 3 line and go to insert and insert a composite node right there. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can kind of do the same thing. And it's just a matter of finding the process that you like. But again, I really like just pressing return and running a search for things. Next up, let's see here. So let's say that I have my smiley face and I have my line art right here. And let's say I want to color this mustachioed character in. I have my line art, and I'm going to copy the line art down to the color art. So I have my line art right here. And then all I need to do is press this button, and that creates color art from line art. And so I just click on that, and it looks like nothing happened. But if I click on my color art, you should see these yellow anchor points and these blue lines going through my lines here. And again, be sure you're working with vector layers in order to do this. And if you press K, you can see that takes away the visibility of it. So if you're not seeing it, you press K to just make sure that that's the case. And so now that I'm on the color art, I'm going to paint bucket in my character. I'm just going to use the standard color palette that they have right here, and I'll just give them blue eyes. I don't know. So something that'll come up with character rigging a lot is sometimes I'm going to do this in order to create a simple demonstration of how we can use these nodes to kind of mess around with things. I'm going to create 2 nodes. One's called isolate line art, and one's called isolate color art layer. So I have my smiley face right here, and this will come up a lot in character rigging. So this will be applicable down the road. So I'm going to hold my cursor right here, press return, and I'm just going to start to type in line art, and you can see isolate shows up right there. So I have that. And remember, you hold down Option or Alt, and I'm just going to click this and drag it while I'm holding that until it goes in between. Oops, I messed that up. Here we go. And so what that did is it isolated the line art, and so the color art's no longer going into the composite. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press return, and I'm going to go start to type in color, and then I'd have to search a little bit, but you see color art isolate. And so I'm just going to put this node in. So I'm just going to click right here, drag it up to the smiley face, let go. Click down here, drag it to the composite node, let go, and we're back in business. And so there's a whole lot of reasons and ways that you can use this, especially if you're creating a 2D rig with line art. But let's say that for some reason I wanted this red line to go beneath my black line art. but in front of my green color art. I can just click that and drag it right there. And now it's sandwiched in between those, right? So this is a great example, I feel like, of just showing an early example of how just creating a really simple node network and how you can use it for